Hello and welcome to episode 154 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering Arena content.
That's right, just a couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client MTG Arena.
Oh, yeah, and we got a new set to talk about, Jeff.
Woo!
Whoo! Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
Yeehaw!
Yeah, exactly. Outlaws of Thunder Junction just came out on Arena this week, and so we got a taste of playing some of those cards. So we're going to talk about our first thoughts or our first sips of the new set. But speaking of sips, Jeff, each week we bring a beer. We drink it, we rate it on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So with that, what's on tap?
All right, this week I'm very excited to announce we have a lager.
Hmm.
Okay. Oh, did you want more than that? Okay, this is called the Deluxe Golden Lager. It's from Burdock Brewing out of Toronto. We tried their IPA a few weeks ago, I want to
Hmm.
say, Ducks, something like that. This brewery is sort of in sort of where I used to live, a little bit, a little west of where I used to live.
Yeah.
And they've been a pretty good brewery, but I've known them mostly to specialize in like sours and stuff like that. So then I saw this lager and also their IPA at the LCBO. I was like, all right, let's give their more normal beers a try. And so that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, the normalist of beers. I do
Yeah.
want to say I love this on the can. It feels very because their other like all their cans are kind of all over the place, but this one feels the most like this is just a run of the mill your dad's beer kind of can. It even says
Yeah,
deluxe, which is the most like dad beer
for sure.
like name.
I bought this so long ago that when we went to like grab these out of the fridge for the show, I was like, what the fuck is this? Some
Yeah.
like bargain bin, like
Yeah.
$2 beer from the LCBO again.
I
Like we
mean,
just did that. Do we
yeah.
have to subject ourselves to it again? But then I saw Burdock at the top. I was like, oh, I get it. They did that on
Yes.
purpose.
Yeah, it's very, very intentional. But I just want to give a nod to that because the word deluxe, for whatever reason, strikes me as like it's on
Oh
like
yeah.
chocolate and also randomly like toilet paper or like
Yeah.
random beers. Just like, I don't know. There's something about deluxe that isn't deluxe. You know what I mean?
Feel like it's like old school marketing. People have caught on. The word
Hmm.
deluxe doesn't actually
Just
mean it's better.
no, it actually almost means it's worse. So I'm
Right.
excited to see if this one is great or not. You'll have to find out
Or
at the end of the
maybe they
episode.
stick to the bit and they make it a bad beer intentionally. That's the gimmick.
That's the worst idea ever. All right,
Only the
let's.
true hipsters can appreciate it.
No, hipsters only appreciate it if it's like really, really cheap and then it's shitty. But it has to be
That's true.
cheap,
It's
right?
expensive and bad.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean, if it were bad, I
yeah.
haven't even
Though,
tasted it yet.
do hipsters even exist anymore?
I don't know what they're called now, but there's always a version of it in every like generation,
Oh,
right?
sure. Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, I guess we don't have to talk about that. But anyway, let's let's just crack
Hip
these beers.
Z's.
I
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not hip enough to
Yeah.
know what it's actually called nowadays.
In our day, they were called hipsters. Okay,
Yes. Yeah. Back when we were cool, they were called
that's right.
hipsters before everyone else. Um,
I think it's more
anyway.
like back when there were people our age who were cool. Like I don't know if I was ever cool, but if
Mhm.
I was around an age where it was conceivable that I could have been cool.
I think you're cool.
Thank you. It's
Yeah, you're
very nice of
welcome.
you to say.
Yeah.
Anyways, magic news.
We have some magic news. The Pro Tour for Outlaws of Thunder Junction is next weekend. That is April 26th to the 27th, or sorry, 28th. It's 3 days, not two. Um, and it's obviously going to be Outlaws of Thunder Junction Limited, and I also believe it's Standard. Um, I'm saying this as I actually didn't look that part up. I literally just looked up what the days it was. Yes, it is Standard. I should have gone with my gut and just
Yeah,
stuck with
trusted your
it.
gut.
God,
Yeah.
what a dummy. Always trust your gut. Anyway, so
Yeah.
that's quite exciting. It's always fun to have some like premier Magic almost immediately after the set comes out. Fun to
Yeah.
see. If
Standard, especially right after a site
yeah.
comes out, because standard is usually the most impacted.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's exciting. Do you think you're gonna find some time to play this one?
To play the Pro Tour.
Did I say play?
Yeah.
I meant watch.
Oh yeah.
Are you gonna watch it?
I thought you were making a joke that like, oh, you gonna be able to play in the Pro Tour? I was like, no, I'm not
I'm
qualified.
gonna listen to that back. Did I say play? Anyways. Yeah, I
Anyway,
mean, are you gonna play? I guess that's the first question. And if
no,
not, are you gonna watch?
I'm gonna watch for sure. Yeah, I think I just got my schedule. I have like Saturday off, which never happens, so that's always fun
Ooh.
to be able to watch some of that, some day two. But yeah, how about yourself? Are you gonna be watching the Pro Tour?
I'm gonna try. Yeah, I usually try to do this like watch VODs like before bed or something
Right, right,
after
right.
it's already been recorded, just because it's hard to find the time when they're actually going on. So yeah, maybe I'll be able to stitch something together, like a few
Nice.
live matches,
A
maybe
few of
then a
the
few
recorded
top
ones.
eight VODs.
It's nice. It's nice. I do have to say that there's something even more important, a more intense, important tournament that's coming up, and that
Oh,
is
way
happening.
more. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
higher skill level, I would say too.
for sure. It is happening this weekend in Toronto.
Woo!
Jeff and I are going to an RCQ. Yay!
Yeah. When's
Uh,
the, when's the last time that happened? Has that ever happened?
I don't think we. I know.
I mean, they weren't necessarily called RCQs before.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so we're going to a sealed RCQ. I've been prepping all week for it, and I think the more prep I do, the harder it gets.
Well, of
So
course, you're blissfully ignorant when you have no prep. You're
it's
just
true.
like,
It's true.
yeah.
Now I feel like I have no idea what's going on. With that
No,
being
no, now
said,
you're aware of the fact that you have no idea what's going on, right?
yes, yes,
That
I think
that
that's
is a
correct.
step above thinking you know what's going on when you
Oh,
are wrong.
that's true. That's true. I think that's where I started this morning, and now I
Yeah.
am in the zone of I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Good progress. We call that
Yeah,
progress.
yeah.
Yes.
I hope to call it that progress. Anyway, Jeff, with that, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, this set, how are we feeling about it? How much have you been able to play? What are your first sips?
Well, before that, there is one thing I wanted to touch on.
Mm.
I don't know if you've heard all of the complaining about something Wizards did with this set. It's all over. Everywhere I log in, keep seeing these complaints. It's
Oh
never
yeah.
happened to me personally, but it might happen to you at home. So heed this warning. I'd like to know if it happened to you, Zach, since you've been playing a lot since Outlaws of Thunder Junction came on. But apparently, there's been a massive influx of people pausing in your draw step and then emoting one or three, two, one, draw, and then
Oh,
unpausing and letting you draw your card.
that is hilarious. I haven't seen that at all. Not even
Really?
once.
Every time I log into
Um,
Reddit, it's like, could they get rid of this emote already? And I'm just like, what do you mean? That is so funny. I wish somebody would do that to me.
yeah, I need to start doing that to other people. That's what I want to
Yeah.
do.
People are like,
Um,
oh, it's funny the first time, maybe, but then you get sick of it. I'm like, nah, I think it's still going to
No,
be
I think
funny
it's
the
still pretty
hundredth
funny.
time.
Yeah, I have used it. Okay, so what Jeff's saying is that we have a bunch of new emotes. If you haven't seen them, you just basically get them, right? They just kind of like appeared. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
You get like five of them. So you have like howdy and yeehaw and stuff like that. But Jeff's referring to the 3-2-1 draw as if you're in a duel. Um, and I have used it, but that was because someone was playing Plan Ahead or Plan the Heist or whatever that card's called. Anyway, they draw three cards, and
Ah,
so I
right.
say three,
Nice.
two, one draw because you just that's how many cards you're drawing. Um, but that is funny. I like that the pausing and
Yeah.
the upkeep just for that.
Yeah. The person's like, what is going on? Why are they paused during my
Why
draws?
do they pause? What are they gonna do?
Yeah.
Um, that's awesome. So that hasn't you're saying that hasn't happened to you?
It has not, but now
Okay.
that and ever since I read that on Reddit, I'm like, I want somebody to do it to me. I
Hmm.
feel cheating doing it to someone else because I feel like I stole it because I read it.
That's true. That's true. On
But
Reddit, yeah.
yeah, but if somebody does it to me, I'll be very happy.
Even though they
So
could have also read it on Reddit.
yeah, I don't care.
Okay, perfect. You don't care if somebody else does it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
but I
Yeah,
can't do something that I just found out for somebody else.
correct.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
gotcha.
the Cowboys honor, you know? I'll just trust
Totally.
them if they
Yeah,
came up
yeah.
with it on there.
Um, yeah, so I have been streaming a lot. It's like the longest I've ever streamed, which has been pretty fun. And I've been drafting a ton. But it does get to the point where I thought I knew what was going on, and then obviously everything changes so quickly at the very beginning, and everyone's decks are all over the place. And now I'm starting to find like streamlined decks, and you're like, oh, geez, these patterns are a lot better than what I was doing.
Yeah, the jank that I thought was the format is
is
really
is really just like a pile of cards.
doesn't hold a candle to
Yeah.
what my opponent
I
just
was
did.
like, oh, that's what that card's supposed to do. That's a lot better than how I was trying to do.
Yeah, whoa, that's good.
Wow. Wow, it's a lot better. Um, so that's kind of been my experience. Um,
Luckily,
but
sealed is always just a pile of cards,
that's
so
that's true.
yeah,
Yeah. So I've been mainly drafting, but I think tomorrow I'm just gonna only play sealed to prepare for the sealed Ursa queue,
yeah,
and hopefully that'll be a little bit better. A little bit.
yeah.
Not that it's been all bad. I'm just we've had middling success, but it is
Early format,
interesting.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've only played sealed. So I did the pre-release, then I have been sticking to sealed events on Arena as well,
Nice.
because I knew I wouldn't have that much time. So got to focus on the tournament.
That's smart.
Um, and I've had some pretty nutty pools, but some mediocre like actual
The
results.
results, yeah.
So I don't know, it's a pretty small sample, I guess. My pre-release pool was insane. It was just like a red black deck that was off the charts in terms of curve and power level, and
Oh,
I went
yuck.
1-1-1. So I
That wait, I also went 1-1-1 at
oh
my
shit.
pre-release.
Was it win, tie, loss? Because that's what I did. I literally went one and then one and then one.
No, I
Uh,
actually went tie win loss. That's how it went.
gotcha. Almost the same.
Almost the same.
Um, the funny thing is, this was an event that served beer.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, I won my first match, tied my second, and
And
lost
then
my third. So I don't want to say that my win rate was exactly correlated with how many beers I had, but there was definitely some strong relationship that
yeah.
existed between those two things.
Well, Jeff, weren't you playing that every time you drink a beer, you gain 3 life because you consumed some food? Isn't that how that works?
What? I wasn't aware of those rules. I should have been up to
Quick,
like
quick,
30 life.
get the waiter over here. I need another beer really quickly.
Tell him I'm gonna need a knife.
yeah. oh man. Yeah, so
And I
my
definitely like blundered away in both the tie and the loss. I definitely punted pretty hard.
yeah.
Um, but I was just having fun. It was a pre-release.
Yeah, exactly. That's what pre-releases are for. Like my sealed pool, I ended up playing Naya because I had Annie Flash.
Oh,
Um
nice. Yeah.
I had some cards that probably could put together like a red blue type of like double spell kind of deck. But I just didn't really feel like trying to figure out how to get that to work. And I was like, you know what? Creatures with power 4 or greater, and then a flash creature, this will be great. And so that was pretty good. That was fun. I had a good
Yeah.
time with that. It was mainly like green, red splash for Annie.
Nice.
But
Believe it or
yeah,
not, I was red black. Um,
yeah,
what's that goblin that's a 1/2 like first strike haste and you can sack it to draw a card and
yeah.
make a treasure? I
I
had
don't know the
four
name,
of
but
those.
oh my God.
And then I had like a couple of the Roadrunners and like some other solid 2 drops.
That's
And then yeah, plenty of reason. I had the 3 drop enchantment that like gives your things menace and haste or +2/+0
oh,
every turn.
Ferocification. Yeah.
So I had these draws where I would just like rip people to shreds, where I'm like Hasty Goblin, Roadrunner, Roadrunner and Hasty Goblin, like this thing. And my top end was like Rakdos. I had a Terror of the Peaks.
Oh, well,
I
you
had a
should have just
Magda
gone
was
with
one of
that.
my 2 drops.
Hmm.
I had like the deck was just ridiculous. And then for fun, I chucked an 8 mana sorcery into my aggro deck just because I wanted to play it. But it's the one that destroys your opponent's creatures, and you draw a card for each creature destroyed.
Oh, okay.
And I had a game where I cast that for 6, destroyed 6 of their creatures, and drew 6 cards, and I lost that game. And I thought that should be a record, and I should be immortalized in their like store.
Yeah.
But basically, I drew like all lands, and that card, my opponent was beating me down, and they got me to 1, and then I cast that. And then I started rebuilding, and on the turn I was going to kill them. They top deck a desert and pinged me for 1.
Oh, oh God.
And the funny thing is, they had a card that like searches a land or desert and puts it on top of your library. the turn before,
Yeah.
they chose not to use it because they were thinking of a different out that they had in their deck and
Uh,
forgot that they had this desert that pings me.
hmm.
And then they top decked the desert anyways the next turn and played it. And I was like, why didn't you search that with your guy? And he was like, oh man, you're totally right.
That would
But
have been so good. Wait, real quick.
so
What
that
is
just made it
this?
even better.
What sorcery are you talking about?
It's it's apparently it's a reprint from Portal, but it's literally an 8 mana sorcery. It says destroy your target opponent's creatures, like all of
Hmm.
them, and you draw a card for each creature destroyed this way.
Mm. Right. Now I remember. Yeah, it's on the breaking news sheet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read it, I was like, hold on. What does this card do?
Wait, what?
One-sided wrath, and then just for the hell of it, in case that wasn't enough to win, I get to draw a bunch. And it still wasn't enough to win
Yeah.
for me. So although I remember I drew 5 lands and Rakdos off that, and I was like, maybe that's enough. I mean, Rakdos is pretty good.
Rectus is pretty good. Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah, my deck was nuts, and I lost mostly to punts like just jamming. I jammed that 8 mana spell into an obvious counter spell because I thought my opponent did tapped out of blue mana, but they had a treasure like off to the side that
Oh,
wasn't a
gotcha.
real treasure token. It was like something because we
Oh,
were playing in paper.
right,
I legitimately thought it was like cleanup from the previous game. Like I didn't even
right.
think it was a game piece.
Yeah,
So I jammed it. My opponent like sacks the treasure and counters it. I was like, ah, yeah. And I didn't need to cast it. That it's like the quench, basically.
yeah.
And I had 1 extra mana, and next turn I would have had two, and there was no reason for me to cast it this turn other
Hmm.
than they tapped out of blue mana, or so I thought. And so that's when I was like, that's like beer number 4, 5, probably kicking in on that one, where I'm just
Yeah.
like, they don't have
Uh,
any blue mana. Bang.
bang. Yeah.
Uh,
My
and that was the draw. That game went to the tie.
gotcha. The game that went to a tie for me was my first opponent, who was playing fairly slow, but I wanted to give him like time to like
That's
figure
a
out the cards and
pre-release.
stuff. Yeah. But we did have a judge call because he was telling me that attacking your opponent, like dealing damage to your opponent, is a crime. And I was like,
Ah, oh.
no. That's that all your cards would be very good if your 1/2 flyer pings me every turn and you commit a crime and it triggers all your cards.
Yeah.
That's not how. So
Oh, I thought the Raven triggered his
yes,
crimes.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Raven. Um, so that was fine. That was totally fine. There wasn't an issue with it. But
Raven's
for
already good enough. We don't need
Raven's already
to.
really good. Yeah, it's like the 2 mana 1/2 Raven that drains them every time you commit a crime and it has flying. Um, anyway, so I that
I had
just
two of those in my pre-release
yeah, I bet. Of course you did.
deck. Why
Um,
not? I was considering cutting them because I was like, is this the worst card in my deck? It might be.
um, but my last opponent ended up having a pretty sick situation where I was basically going to win on the next turn, but they were able to play Annie Joins Up, which is like the 4 mana Naya enchantment that when it enters the
Yeah.
battlefield, it deals 5 damage to a creature. But the other text on that card, which normally doesn't matter, says if a triggered ability of a legendary creature you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So
I feel like that
my
could be relevant.
my opponent
But
ended up top decking Bruce Tarl, slamming Bruce Tarl. And then Bruce Tarl is a 4 mana 4/3, and it says Oxen have double strike. And then when it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile the top card of your library. If it's a land, create a 2/2 Ox. Otherwise, you can cast that until your next turn. So they play Bruce Tarl. Trigger goes on the stack. It's a land. Get a 2/2 double striker. Next trigger goes on the stack. It's another land. They get another 2/2 double striker. And I'm like,
nice.
you went from no blockers to 3 blockers, and 2 of them have double strike. And I can't do anything. And then the next turn, they just attack with it and make like another ox and then get a removal spell. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, this is crazy. But it was awesome. It was really cool to see that happen because there, I just, I even had Annie Joins Up in my pool, and I just thought my other removal spells are better, and I was like, I don't think it's worth playing it because
Right.
doubling my triggers didn't seem that good. They seemed
Plus three
kind of
mana,
okay.
right? Like it's
Yeah,
Naya, the full
it's
Naya
Naya.
spectrum on a removal spell. What the worst thing you want from your removal spells is them being tough to cast.
Exactly. So then I was like, I don't know. I was like, it's a pre-release. I have Annie. It would be fun to play, but I ended up going with my gut and like not playing it. Um,
Probably
just,
right if you
just
can't make use of the second one.
exactly. But then my opponent ended up beating me with it, so that was kind of just hilarious. Um,
Although if you had Annie herself, like doubling Annie's trigger is pretty good.
it is pretty good, but it just seemed like I don't know. It just seemed like I'd rather have it not stuck in my hand. I'm not sure. Could have been. Oh, I didn't really have good fixing, although also. So I was like
Yeah.
already worried about casting Annie. So
And that's worth talking about, like removal. People splash removal a little too often, I think. Removal is generally, especially one for one removal, is
hmm
generally only good at a very specific point in the game. That means like you want to be able to consistently cast it at that point, or it's just going to
yes,
rot in your hand and you're going to sit there like, oh man, if only I had a mountain, I could have killed that and then I wouldn't be losing. Now I get it 4 turns later and I get like, yeah, but that's the decision you made when you put this card
in
like
your
card in your
deck. Yeah.
deck. When you're splashing like Annie, Annie's a card that is you're willing to wait for it. Like you play that
hmm
in the late game, it's still awesome. So
Exactly.
um yeah, generally speaking, I don't love splashing removal, and I think other people like love to for some reason. Um,
Yeah.
I I don't generally advise it. Sometimes if you're like a blue-green deck, you have no removal, you have really good fixing for black, you could splash a black removal spell. Like sometimes it does make sense. But generally speaking, I think people are like, oh, I want to splash good cards, and removal are good cards.
hmm
Removal is generally the exception. Splashing removals tends to be pretty bad because you just sit there while you get beat down with this removal spell you can't cast, and then by the time when you get the black spell, it doesn't catch you up because it's just a one for one.
hmm No, I definitely agree. And that's something that I've been trying to work towards being better at not splashing my removal spells. Because you're like, I'll be like, yeah, blue, green, splash white for removal. And you're like,
Yeah,
well, no, you should probably just be like white, blue, or really white, green, splash blue for whatever the blue thing is going to be. Which
exactly. You should try
hopefully,
to reframe it in your head, be like, if white is has the good removal,
hmm
can I build a deck that is base white and it's just splashing the best cards that attracted me to this other color?
yeah,
Usually you can make that work, and that'll be a better deck.
yeah. Um, makes it a lot easier. I think people are really good at knowing that like if I want to be base green if I want to splash stuff, that's fairly obvious.
Yeah,
Um, but then when you start in a different space and you're like, okay, well I'm blue, red, splash white now. Like what do I do?
yeah,
And how do I maneuver around that? It can be pretty difficult and make or break your whole deck.
yeah.
I
It's
like
like, do I play Mardu? Do I play Esper? Do I play
mhm.
Azorius? It's like,
And the other thing with this set is that for limited, there at least when you're drafting, you're almost always playing against like three color decks. I think that's just fixing is pretty good nowadays, especially when you have like both common duels and rare duels and like good fixing in green. Like,
it's also different, like draft versus sealed, of course. Like
yeah.
draft, I can look out for seal or like fixing that I know I need if I pick an early off-color bomb.
hmm
Um, Still though, I'd say another good rule of thumb is like if your two-color deck, if the power level on it is really high, then you have to consider if the splash is worth it because you lower your consistency. Like splashing is lowering consistency, and the payoff you get is a higher power level.
hmm
If you're already really satisfied with your power level and the way your deck's going to lose is that it just doesn't run well, then don't splash additional power into it
Yeah.
because the splashing just increases the likelihood you don't run well. And the power level thing, like you already had covered. Your deck was already, a 9 out of 10.
hmm
This makes it a 9.2 out of 10 or whatever. Like that's not going to translate into a meaningful change in your win rate.
hmm
But like you are increasing the fail rate in a non-trivial way. So like that's what I did with my pre-release deck because I actually had really good blue cards and blue red cards, and I was like, let's just keep it red black because I don't need power. What
hmm
I need is my deck just to do its thing like every game,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna win.
hmm Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, and it can be kind of hard, especially, we're talking about draft versus sealed. Sealed sometimes is one of those situations where you get stuck and you're like, well, what am I going to do? I don't have enough playables. Like I have to play three colors, and just trying to obviously find the smoothest thing as possible that can be the strongest.
Yeah.
Um,
And
is
best
the
of
only way to
one is
go.
also a thing too, right? Like a hand
Yes.
smoother and all that.
Yes.
So, um, I personally think people just splash a bit too much, especially on Arena. But
Hmm.
there are pros, like when you watch the Pro Tour, like there are pros like me who splash much more occasionally, and then there are pros who like always splash. So it's not like a set. It's not a solved thing. It's just
Yes.
play styles, the way people draft and build
Hmm.
decks. I value like I hate having a splash card in my hand and just not drawing any way to cast it, like and losing because I didn't get to cast my card. That's a way that I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
So I tend to bias towards like if I don't have, I think of it as like a, well, my deck's not very good. I kind of have to splash to increase its power level.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas I think there are players out there that think, ooh, I have enough fixing that I get to splash.
Hmm.
Um, and neither one is necessarily right or wrong. It's just uh, how do you want to lose?
Yeah.
How do you prefer to lose? Because some
Yes.
people might be like, oh, well, I don't feel bad about that loss because there's nothing I could have done. Like I just had a green card and never drew a forest. Uh,
Yeah. Yep. That just happens.
Anyways, splashing is generally pretty easy in this set. So
Hmm.
I'm not saying don't splash in this set in particular. That was just like commentary at a general, like
Yes.
stop splashing quite so much for a bit. Try not splashing quite as much. See if you actually win less or if you
Yeah.
win more.
Jeff, I get it. I splashed too much. I understand. I'll
Yeah,
try to
I
pull it
mean,
back.
I'm trying to talk to everyone, but really, Zach, like, uh,
I know
please play a
you're
two-color deck this weekend. That's all I'm trying to
all right. Well, I'll do my best, but like that's my
say.
pool. That's what my pool has to do. My pool will tell me what I'm playing.
Always blame it on the pool.
Blame it on the pool. Um. Anyway, do you have like I mean, well, I was gonna say you have a favorite color, but obviously it's just gonna be Rakdos because it always is.
My favorite color is Rakdos.
Yeah. Um. I do want to say that front runner for one of my favorite cards in the set is Prairie Dog. This
Mm.
card is so awesome.
I
Uh,
have never had the luxury of having it on my side of the battlefield, but the first
mm.
time I played against it, they would cast it on turn two on the play. And I was like, oh, okay, a 2/2. And I just like hover over it. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Like, and I am sitting there with like my only removal spell in hand, I think, was Electro Dominance. And I was like, if my opponent just never casts anything, I'm gonna lose this game.
You
Like
can
if they
never
just sit
scale
there
up.
and never, because I scale by one every turn, at that scaling by one every turn, like I'm just gonna lose if they literally don't cast another spell. And I
Yeah,
think all my removal otherwise in the deck was 5 damage or less because it was red removal.
right.
In this wasn't in my pre-release, this was just on Arena. And I was like, unless I draw that like in the top three
Soon.
cards, my opponents they don't know that they should do that, so they probably won't. But they did take like 2 or 3 turns off at this
Oh,
2 turns off, and then they cast something. I was like, ah, sucker, Electro
bam.
Dominance. Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, Prairie Dog is one and a white for a 2/2 lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast a spell from your hand this turn, it gets a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah.
It also has an ability you can pay 5 until end of turn. If you would put one or more counters on something, you get to put another counter on it. +1/+1 counter specifically. But Prairie Dog's best friend is Holy Cow, and
Yeah.
they work together very nicely.
Or even
Per-
just anything with plot, really. But
yeah. Prairie Dog's other best friend is Snakeskin Veil, because that's what I got to do today was have my Prairie Dog
disgusting.
play Prairie Dog on 3, hold up Snakeskin Veil for the rest of the game. Because I had two Snakeskin Veils in my deck, so I'm just like waiting for them to cast something. I get to cast Snakeskin Veil, put another counter on it, and it gets hexproof. Blank their removal spell.
Oh,
They try to do it again. I play another one.
I hate that. Hate that
my
so
my
much.
Prairie Dog becomes a 13/13 with lifelink. I gained like
Oh my
50 life.
God.
It was amazing. I I had so much fun. Like I don't think I've had any like more fun in draft than playing literally my white green splash blue deck with just like Snakeskin Veil and Prairie Dog. It was just a blast. That card's just I want as many as possible. I love it. I love him.
It's very good. I had to read it like three times the first time I saw it because I'm like, I must be misunderstanding this card.
Hmm.
It's like, nope, that's just
It
what it
is it
does.
is true that you do want to have it early because it does fit in certain archetypes. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's really just baseline a 2 mana 2/2 with lifelink, which is already a really good limited card, and there's two of them in this
Yeah.
set. Um,
It's already
so
at least playable in almost every format. A two
yeah,
like a Grizzly Bear with lifelink is
yeah,
it's not super exciting, but you would play it.
yeah. You mean
And then
format like every limited format?
every limited, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, I mean
Legacy,
legacy, vintage.
timeless.
Yeah. Um no, but you asked my favorite color pair. I don't know. I've only done a few sealed, so I don't necessarily have one yet, but my initial feeling is that I think green seems pretty strong, at least in sealed, and sealed is a bit slower, so
Hmm.
that could be part of it. I have Celestia sealed going right now, and I'm just steamrolling people.
Yeah.
Like my creatures is just so good and also do a bunch of stuff every time I play them, and it's just like I feel like I'm casting spells and deploying creatures to the board every turn.
Yes.
And the power level on this is relatively high as well, but I think, I think because of the pack structure, power level is just higher than what I'm used to. So, like there's more uncommons, there's more rares,
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
mythics.
There's more of everything. Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, man, like green whites, this one in particular, I'm really just like, this is like easy mode. This is autopilot. I just play a creature every turn and I just they can't keep up.
They really can't. Like, I was gonna say, I quickly learned that green seems incredibly strong.
Yeah, green
Like,
definitely early mode. Like I got my ass kicked by green a bunch of times. And I was like,
yeah.
ooh,
So
green
I think,
might be the spicy one to watch here.
yeah, green is really strong. Hard Bristle Bandit, which is the 2 mana 1/1 that it's a mana dork that
Oh,
taps for
so
any
good. I have
color.
two of those in my current sealed deck,
Yeah.
and I like cast Path. I love casting Path to Exile with it, and then
Hmm.
it untaps, and then I cast the thing that I wanted to cast.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, that's dirty.
Mm, perfect.
So
Giant.
hard. We should read Hard Bristle Bandit, I guess. I interrupted you
Yeah.
talking about how much I like it, but
Yeah, it's a 2 mana 1/1 that taps for any color, but if you commit a crime, it untaps just once per turn. But still, like
once per turn. So if you're an instant, you can untap it on your opponent's turn as well.
exactly, yeah. Um, it's
You can generate a lot of mana, and it's any color. I would play this thing
mhm.
even without that second ability for sure
Yeah,
in limited.
it's quite nice being able to like fit your perfect plots and curves and things where you're like kill your thing, plot something, or kill your thing, play a giant beaver or whatever else. Which is another card, Giant Beaver. We talked about it last week, I think.
Oh yeah,
This has
giant
been
beaver.
really impressive to me. It's always just a freaking 4/4, like a beastie 4/4. And now when I'm playing my green decks, I usually play it on turn three because I have a hard bristle bandit. So you're like, boom, 4/4 vigilance, throw counters everywhere, and then I'm gonna follow it up with a cack tarantula, which ends up being the bane of my existence or my favorite card ever.
Yeah,
Um, which
it's this always this always brings me back because stuff like this because I literally remember a time. This was when I was first getting into like drafting more competitively, where I'm like reading what other people are doing rather than just drafting for fun, stuff like that. I remember the limited format. There was a common. It was two green green for a 4/4.
mhm,
It was like a Baloth. And
yeah,
that was one of the best commons in the set. That's it. Two green green, 4/4. That was like, yeah, you if you see
vanilla.
that guy, that's your
Hmm.
signal to go green. You get
Hmm.
that and like a couple of grizzly bears? Man, how are they gonna keep up?
Yeah.
And now I see this is like three and a green, easier to cast for a 4/4, vigilance, saddle three, puts plus one. It's just like this is so much better than that card that was like the best
So much
common and
better.
was the reason green was overpowered in that format. It's just
Hmm.
like power
I
creep is real, but it's just when you take that like huge gap look, you're like, wow, I played with that other card and was
mhm.
excited to have it in my pool. And this I'm like not excited, but it's not like forcing me into green
I think you
necessarily.
should be more excited about Giant Beaver. I love
Yeah,
Giant Beaver.
I think he's good. I think he's good.
Hmm.
But green is so good, like
There's so you honestly you can play a bunch of different things. Um, I was thinking like my first initial thought was like green is really strong. Cat Tarantula is great, which almost is always a 5 mana 6/5 with
oh
reach.
yeah, it's just a 5 mana six
Always.
five that's like hard for your opponent to target, which is
Yeah,
the perfect text that you want on your top end.
exactly. And especially it's especially perfect because it specifically stops like lots of blue decks which have little
Hmm.
flyers, and
Yeah,
blue decks have a hard time dealing with it because they have a lot of bounce spells or like spells that put it on top of your library or all that stuff, and you just draw a bunch of cards. You just put it back in your hand, draw a card, play it next turn. They try to do something, you draw another card.
yeah.
uh, this card also loves
You'd
Snakeskin
like to
Veil.
bounce it? Sure.
And literally, the blue player, I've been in that position where I'm like, I can't win if this is on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Put like draw it again at the beginning of your turn, but you get to draw a card when I do this, so it doesn't even like put you back a draw step. Like so brutal. Like one of blue's best spells is like Repulse. Is that the? It's in the
Yeah,
breaking
yeah.
news slot,
Repulse, yeah.
and this is literally just like laughs at you. I know it's just a common, and obviously there's a lot of other great bomby cards, but at like the kind of lowest, easiest card that green has to be like, oh yeah, and then you have to deal with the Cacturantula. Tarantula, you're just like, it's the one I lose to the most because it's like, I dealt with all your other crap, and
Right.
now I have to deal with a Cacturantula Tarantula that fills your hand. All my good removal's gone, and I have to deal with this stupid thing. It's,
Yeah.
it's so annoying, but also good.
Yeah. Early thoughts, green's where it's at.
Yes.
Maybe even green white, but I don't know if
Hmm.
I'm ready to commit to that. But just the green white gold stuff is so good.
I had some really good green black stuff because it's
Oh
basically
yeah.
like
I've played
the
against some good green black decks too, where I'm like, what? Like Redstein is so good. This is the most
Rutstein is so good.
ridiculous Gravedigger. When I read the
Yeah,
card, my opponent cast it, and I was like, oh, what does this thing do? Like, okay, so it's a Gravedigger, and it's a 3/2 for 3, and creature spells you cast cost one less to cast. What the fuck is this card?
I
An
know.
uncommon? Like,
When I read it, when I like, was first spoiled, I'm like, oh, this card's busted. Like it's
yeah.
so good. It makes your Cacturantula a 4 mana 6/5.
I was reading it when I was spoiled in the context of constructed, and I was like, oh, okay,
Mm,
maybe. And
yeah,
then if I didn't like kick my limited brain in to just be like, what the hell is that for
yeah.
limited? Like, are you kidding me?
Like I do want to say some like green obviously has all the big creatures, is really strong. Black has great removal. And there are two, besides Rutstein, like, raise deads it to your hand. But there are two different cards that reanimate stuff in green black. There's like the base one in the actual set that reanimates something from your graveyard and then puts a permanent into your hand. And then you
Right.
have Back for More, which is from Ikoria, which is like the 6 mana one that makes it fight
Oh
something.
yeah, and then it fights. Ugh,
Yeah.
it's a nuts limited card
And
too.
also black has like the 2 mana 2/2, the Desperate Bloodseeker. It's a 2 mana 2/2 lifelink that enters the battlefield and target player mills 2 cards,
Mhm.
which either helps you fuel your graveyard for other shenanigans that you want to do in your green black deck, or commits a crime to your opponent if you feel
Yeah,
like it.
the crimes, man.
The crimes.
Yeah, he might be convincing me. Maybe green black's the way to go, but
I
I haven't
think
actually
it,
played it, so I'm on green white at the moment. But once I get a
yeah.
really solid green black pool, I'll let you know.
Yeah. I mean, like my own, I have basically, I've been playing a bunch, but I've only trophied once, which kind of makes me sad. Um, but my trophy deck was white black. Ended
Oh
up
yeah, you
being,
posted it right on the
yeah.
Discord. Yeah.
So that ended up being the one that got me to the end, which was just all removal all day. Just so much removal.
Classic white black,
Like
right? Like
just so much. Yeah.
there are a few archetypes that are present in every limited format, even if they're not intentionally there. It's like white
Hmm.
black. I have mediocre creatures, but a fuck ton of removal. That's always one. And then
Hmm.
there's blue white flyers. That's just like I just have a lot of creatures that fly, and my game plan is that
You can't
you have a
block.
hard time blocking, and
Hmm.
that's it. And those are like like not secret, they're the opposite of secret. They're just
Hmm.
like the in the background. You can always default to this archetype, even if it's not like an
They're
intent.
like they're fairly
Like,
easy to put together because you're just like picking the same card. Like
Yeah,
your game plan
exactly.
is pick the same cards over and over again. I need
Whatever the
removal.
most busted Windrake is of the time,
Exactly. Just like keep going. Just get more of it. And then try to figure out your deck afterwards. But yeah,
And it tends
it's
to happen when you're cut from the actual
mhm.
archetype that the color pair is supposed to do is not there because someone else is playing it. Um, and so you're like, well, I went into this color pair, I didn't really get the archetype. I can always do flyers, or I can always
Mhm.
do like two threes plus removal. Like
Yeah,
that's my deck.
that's the deck. Yeah. It was it was good, not as exciting and satisfying as some of the other decks I've played, where literally
Those
the
are the
one I was
best wins though when you get there with the like this was just like limited fundamentals,
yeah,
you
just brute
know?
force limited. And I mean, limited fundamentals are great. I really like them. Um, but obviously the splashy fun wins are where your prairie dog is a 13/13. Like I love that
Sure,
too,
yeah.
right? And that deck didn't do very well. I think I might have only won a couple times, but it was like the most fun to it was like the dream.
Yeah. Those wins
Um,
were fun.
yeah.
Whereas the other ones are like nuts and bolts wins where you're just
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm targeting my removal at the right things, I'm making the right blocks, the right attack.
Doing all this stuff, playing my outlaw medic, which is the 2 mana 1/3 lifelink. When it
You're
dies,
playing
draw a
core
card.
set in a non-core set format.
Basically, yeah. Which feels good. It's definitely nice.
Core set
Um,
limited's more fun when everyone has to play core set limited because then you're like, yeah,
I love
nothing
core
like
set.
those games.
I miss core set limited.
Everyone just has a bunch of two threes, no idea what to do.
Yeah, well, we're having like modern horizons and all this stuff. Can we have like beginner horizons or something, or
Yeah.
like fundamentals of magic, or just like teaching
Right.
people stuff? Um,
The next big product, attacking and blocking horizons.
Yeah, yeah. Just literally like vanilla creatures.
Yeah, I
Do
would
you
love
know
that.
how to play Magic? Like, yeah.
Vanilla creatures and super clunky removal and like
Mhm.
very basic combat tricks.
Yeah. That are all like everything's pretty easy to cast
Yeah.
and nothing's overcomplicated.
There are no
Uh,
multicolored cards here. Get out of here.
yeah. Basically, it'll be on Arena, and then like every time your opponent has a certain amount of mana open, you can click a tab and it shows you all the cards they could play at instant speed. You're like, okay, which ones do I think that they're going to play off of these two or three lands? And it's trying to teach you stuff like, do you think it's one of these three cards? And you're like, huh, how
Oh,
bad would it be if it was these cards? I don't
yeah.
know. Um,
That'd actually be great.
I think
That
that
would be
actually be
very
pretty
helpful.
helpful. Yeah. As like just an exercise. It wouldn't be something that happens all the time, but it would just
Yeah.
be like in this game, this is how we like think about things and like work towards stuff.
Speaking of the
Um,
game spelling stuff out for you, have you seen their solution to Sneaky Reach?
oh my God, I forgot.
It's,
I wanted to
it's
talk
so
about this.
obnoxious. I
It
love it.
is. I actually kind of hate it. Um, Not like Sneaky Reach. Okay, so if you haven't seen this, and you don't know what Sneaky Reach is, basically cards that you don't think have reach, mainly red cards, that tends to happen. Like we
Yeah.
know spiders have reach, and we know that trees have reach, and things with bows and arrows tend to have reach.
Yeah.
Uh, Magic has also decided that big red creatures with rocks also have reach, or
Right.
the buildings or orangutans with metal have reach, I guess. Like
Right.
that's like the new thing. Um, it's part of their spreadsheet. It's like it's gonna last. But we call it sneaky reach, obviously, because you don't know it has reach, so you attack into it and then you lose your flyer for no reason.
Right. It's like the opposite of the creatures that look like they have flying based on the art and they don't.
And they don't. Yeah.
Sneaky Reach is the opposite, where it's like there's no reason based on the art for this thing to have reach, but the card does.
Hmm.
You don't realize how much your brain is like shortcutting. Like, oh,
Stuff.
that thing has reach because it has a bow,
Hmm.
or that's a spider. Uh, until you attack into a thing with reach with your flying creature
Yeah. And you're like,
that's
oh
strictly
shit,
smaller with no combat trick. And you're like,
that
ah,
ogre just threw a rock at me, and that
yeah.
sucks. Well, Arena decided they're going to not only change it to make it easier, because
They've
normally
had
there's just
enough complaints, I
there's
guess.
like a little block at the bottom that says like it has trample or haste or whatever.
Right. It looks like a bow and arrow for the reach one.
Yeah. they decided that a little bow and arrow wasn't enough. It had to be giant and on the card and
It's
moving. And
it's
there's a sound effect that goes along with it. He goes, it like rips the
it's
bow back.
it literally takes up whole art.
It's
It's like
it's
neon blue, big bow and arrow, like pulsing back
and
and
not
forth.
just that, but like it also has shooting lines in the background that be like, it has reach. Don't
Yeah.
attack into the reach. It's horrendous. I can't stand it. Mainly
So
because it just when your opponent has multiple ones, they all trigger at the same time and all the sound effects are going off and you're just like, "Oh my God, I don't need it this bad." It's nice if there's a little thing like, "Hey, bing, there's an arrow here or something." But like, gosh, it looks like hexproof
yeah,
or
I was
like
like,
I don't know,
"What the hell is this?" And I had to. Oh, is it just because it has
just
reach? Like
it
I
just
didn't
says
even know
reach.
why it was doing that at
Yeah.
first, and then I was like, "Oh, it must be this reach." So yeah, I mean, it's so obnoxious and it's horrible, but the reason I love it is because it's so clearly like they got an influx of people
Yeah.
pestering them for this. They're like, "All right, fuck you. You want your sneaky reach thing? Like, here
Here you
you
go.
go.
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna
fucking
go."
it's that's 100% what happened. Where they're like, I am so tired of hearing about this. Let's just make it so fucking obvious it
You
has
can't
reach.
tell the creature has reach. Well, here you fucking go. It's
Yeah.
like
So obnoxious.
arrows pointing to it. This thing
Yeah.
has reach, reach,
Yeah,
reach,
yeah.
reach.
Reach. The whole screen is just blinking at you. The card like flips up on itself and it like moves in front of whatever
Yeah.
things. Like, oh,
As you go to
it's
attack with a flyer, Arena's like, "Are you sure?
are
This
you
has
sure?
reach."
Yeah, this has reach. It's like, yes, I'm sure my creature's bigger than that. Like, oh gosh. It
That's
is.
so clearly what happened because it's there's no way somebody designed this as like, yeah, this is a reasonable
Yeah.
reminder. It's something
There's
happened right
no there's no way that somebody decided that that was better than fixing the freaking sideboard issues that we've been
here.
having.
Yeah, oh my
Like, there's no way that they're like, this is the most important thing for Arena, not all this other stuff.
let's spend a lot of time designing the
Yeah.
perfect reach reminder.
Uh, the thing now is that like I'm gonna get so used to seeing that stupid reach thing that I'm gonna forget what it means and just attack right into it because it looks like
Yeah,
it looks like
so
Ward.
used to ignoring.
I'm gonna start
Or they're
ignoring
gonna,
it.
or worse, they're gonna get complaints about how obnoxious it is. They're gonna take it away, and then I'm gonna attack into reach all the time. Like,
Yes,
well, it doesn't
absolutely.
have the bow.
Yeah. Like I
I
don't
thought
want
that
to.
card had reach. I guess
Yeah,
it doesn't.
I guess it doesn't. The arena version doesn't. Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
is. Uh, that's what would be fun. Like they just have a arena thing where like the cards have no text, but all the animations are there, and you have to remember what they all mean. So like when it hits the battlefield, I think there's something with trample ones where they go like stomp, stomp, stomp or something. And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, that one had trample. I still remember that. Okay.
I feel like trample kind of rumbles or something. There's a thing for trample for sure.
When it like yeah, but it's subtle, right? But you
It's a
can
lot more subtle than the
yeah,
reach one.
the
Yeah.
reach one.
And like flying kind of hovers.
Yeah, it's
We're
very
used to
it's
that.
easy. Well, it's like you're teaching somebody, when I teach someone how to play Magic and something's flying, I just pick the card up and be
Yeah.
like, just remember this one has flying.
Yeah.
And it's very easy, and that's what Arena usually does. But now I guess when I'm teaching somebody to play Magic, I got to bring a crossbow with me to be like, all right, so this one has reach.
That's awesome.
Anyway,
Anyway, set feels great. I'm really having a lot of fun with
I'm
it.
really happy with it too.
I was worried
Uh,
the Western thing would be too cheesy. And
oh,
I'd say, I know you weren't concerned about that at all,
yeah.
but I will say it is cheesy, but it's the right amount of cheese. I'm having a great time
Yeah.
with this set.
Well, see, I was really, remember when the Cactarantula first came out? I was like, I don't know if this card is like enough.
Yeah, you poo-pooed the Cactarantula.
I poo-pooed the name of the Cactarantula. I still think it's not the best name, but I am over it and don't care at all anymore.
You'll come around.
So, come around to really liking it, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it'd be favorite name in the set by
I
the
mean, I
end of the
love
set.
Holy Cow.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Um,
even better than that.
I don't know. Holy Cow is so much fun. Do you know? Okay, so there is an
I
emote
love that
for.
it's actually a good card too.
It's great.
They didn't use it on a shitty card.
No, no. Did you know that like there is an emote that says "Holy Cow" that pops up that you can use,
That's
but
no.
you don't get the "Holy Cow" emote until level 69 of the Mastery Pass.
Oh my God.
Isn't that
It's
ridiculous?
quite a coincidence.
That's so strange. I wonder why they did
Yeah.
that. Anyway, I was looking for it today. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go buy this, and then I couldn't buy it, and I was like, well, guess I'm just gonna wait for that one or whatever.
So interesting when they do that. Like you can't buy this because it's like, on the one hand, it's kind of cool. Like you have to earn it or get it through this other
Yeah,
means or like play in an event or something. But on the other hand, it's like I would have bought this.
yeah.
So
My deck has four holy cows in it. I want to
yeah,
play. I want to say holy cow as much as possible.
right. That's all I
Like,
want to do.
yeah.
Just spam holy cow and have my opponents mute
And then three, two, one, draw.
me. I did see
Oh,
a comment on Reddit that's like, I always have people's emotes muted because they were so annoying to me. But I am glad that I finally know why people have been pausing in my draw step for no reason.
oh.
Like,
That's it.
nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it would be really confusing.
Like, why
Um,
all of a sudden is everyone pausing in my draw step?
all right, Jeff, I think it's time to do our worth of slots. We're
Yeah,
gonna
let's get into it.
transition over to standard talk. Um, Jeff, do you want to talk about our worth of slots? You always explain it every time very nicely. I think you could do it again.
Yeah, I could butcher it one more time. So the worth of slots are basically like a little awards show that we run here. There are predictions. It's the opposite of an awards show. Our pre-award predictions. I told you I would butcher this. So it's our predictions for cards that are going to see play. So they're going to be worth a slot in your deck. We
Hmm.
have several categories inspired by sports, I'm told. So there's a layup. These are cards that we think for sure are going to see play. These are the easy ones, like, yeah, it's best card in the set. That one's going to see play, that kind of thing. Then we have a three-pointer. The three-pointer is if the circumstances are correct, it could see play. If in the hands of a good player, this is going to go in, but
Hmm.
in my hands, it's a little more sketchy. And then in our half court, these are really just cards that like we wish would see play, but are very unlikely to, in our
Hmm.
opinion. And then we round it out with just like, what's an overrated card? What's an underrated card? And then we hold ourselves accountable in X number of weeks, where
Hmm.
X is however long before they release a new set.
Yeah, which is I don't know, four
Yeah, I
weeks.
don't know. It's gone down to like three. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's like
yeah.
really, really soon. Um, with that, Jeff, who would like to go first for our layups?
Um, I
I
don't
mean,
know who went first last time.
I don't remember, but I really don't want you to take mine, so I kind of want to go first.
I feel like I know which card you're gonna pick, so I'll let you go
Okay, I
first.
thought you
Yeah.
were gonna let me do this, and that's why I didn't do a backup.
Yeah.
Um, but
There's no need to show off.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so the card that I'm going to pick is very obvious. I talked about it very early on. I'm really excited about it, as are a ton of other people as well. So I don't think it'll be any surprise when I say that my layup is Slick Shot Show Off. It's one in red for a 1/2 bird wizard. It has flying and haste, and whenever you cast a non creature spell, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn, and it also plots for one in a red. I talked specifically about wanting this card to be in Picnic Ruiner, but also because we have the like blue red fast land, spells are on the table. Um, there's a lot of different things that you can do just with this type of card, and the play pattern of being able to plot it out of your hands to keep it away from any sort of deep cavern bats that may try to steal it, and save up for the one big turn where you just kind of swing out and kill them out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Um, this has been making moves already in standard. It is a card Andrea Mangucci's already buying and selling, so
Yeah.
that you know that it's going to be good if he's already like talking about it. So uh,
Yeah. This
go
card's
ahead.
absolutely cracked. Like, this is the best card in the set for sure.
Hmm.
It's ridiculous. And I kind of like that they did this because it will bring some disruption to the everyone plays mid-range kind of like it's either mid-range or you go way over the top
Hmm.
currently. Now
Yeah,
we finally have a reasonable option where we're like, hey, we can do some other stuff here because this card is just that good. Uh I'm gonna give like a tip here. I haven't played in the standard. I haven't played against this card,
yeah.
but I already know far too many people are gonna tap out against this. Like opponent's gonna plot it. They're gonna be like, "Wow, what's the worst that could happen?" And tap out. Don't do that.
It
You will die.
yeah,
I'm not joking. You're
just out
gonna
of
lose
nowhere.
the game.
Hmm.
Like, This is insane, this card. So, always hold up removal,
Hmm.
or you're gonna lose.
What I will say is that if you see that your opponent, their name is Zulberg, just
Yeah.
tap out. Just tap out. Don't worry about
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah. That
Just
guy's
tap out.
notorious for not having any actual way to pump this card. It's just like he just
Yeah,
likes
yeah,
it, so he
yeah,
plays
yeah.
it.
It's a 1/2 with haste and
Yeah.
flying. What more could you ask for?
Yeah. No, I mean you are literally, and no exaggeration, you are likely to lose the game if you
Yes.
tap out. So don't. Um, and I already know you guys are listening to me. You're like, I wouldn't do that. And then you're gonna be in a game, you're gonna be like, oof, really need to curve out here. You're gonna curve out and you're gonna lose. So just
Hmm.
remember that I said this when
All
that
right.
happens to you.
Absolutely. Uh, but yeah, we all kind of knew that was going to happen. Jeff, what's your worth a slot? I'm pretty interested.
Okay, so I assumed that I would not get Slick Shot show off, so I had
Hmm.
to make some preparations for what I was gonna choose
Phew.
otherwise.
Just because Jeff's
Um,
such a nice guy.
yes, yes. So this was a tough one for me, but I think I am gonna select it. And the reason it's tough for me is because when it was spoiled, I did have a negative reaction to it, and I think I'm coming around, and I've slowly come around to the point where I'm just like, you know what? This card might just be this card might just be the real deal. Which does make me happy in the end because I wanted it to be good.
Hmm.
The card that I'm going to choose is Tiny Bones, the pickpocket. This card's kind of insane. So, a 1/1 death touch for one in the current metagame of like creatures, like really aggressively costed, powerful creatures, is already just good. Like, this is going to almost always trade up in mana. Like, sure, sometimes it'll get cut down, but how bummed are you about that?
Hmm.
So, like, what's the worst that happens? They pick it up for free with like you know, one of those cheap removal spells like a pest control or temporary lockdown. Sure, but that's
That
not the
would,
end of the world either.
yeah.
And then the upside is so, so high. Like the upside here is ridiculous. Like this is going to trade with creatures far better than it really often because you don't want to allow that second ability. And you're happy with that, or it's going to hit people.
Hmm.
And then you're going to get that second ability. Then on top of that, it's a rogue for when that matters. It's the skeletons for, when could that not matter? And like the bar for a one drop is so low that like I don't know, I think this card's just really, really good and probably gonna like my hope is that with a lot of the black mid-range decks, we're gonna shift the curve down a little bit, start playing one drops and stuff and get faster games and more interactive games, which I think is awesome. But also, I just looking at this, playing with this set and realizing how effing easy it is to commit crimes, and then looking at some of the cards in this set that want you to commit crimes and just like the payoff you get is really, really non-trivial on like reasonably costed creatures. I would be surprised if either Mono Black or Rakdos or Grixis or maybe I guess Dimir, but probably not. Uh, Crimes is an actual standard deck. Like the
All right.
payoffs are legit
Hmm.
and it's so easy to do and the payoffs are cheap. And so you're running like Tiny Bones joins up, really nice way to commit a crime. Um, Vadmir, like the guy that just gets counters every time you commit crimes, and then turns into a friggin' super like menace lifelink 6/6 or
House.
whatever. For 2 mana on the base, like I don't know, like Magda seems really good to me. Um,
Magda's very good.
then there's this like Forsaken Miner, which is the 2/2 that comes back when you commit crime. Like
Hmm.
this is like the Rakdos kind of aggro, but can play a long game kind of thing that I've already been doing, but has a theme to it, which I'm a sucker for. So
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking Rakdos Crimes might be an actual thing, and
Ooh,
I'm here for it. Whether it's tier one, I don't know, but like maybe tier two could be
something
tier
like that.
one. Has a lot of good cards in it.
So I'm really happy they came around on Tiny Bones.
Yeah.
I was excited
all
about
the way
Tiny
around.
Bones. Well,
Yeah.
obviously because it's a skeleton and everything. Um, but I will have to say that we've been talking about our skeletons deck for a couple sets now.
Yeah.
Like Lost Caverns of Ixalan, we were building it up in MKM. This is the time that it's time to shine. And Ash Lizzle freaking beat us to the punch. Ash Lizzle's in like Mythic already, playing skeletons,
How
showing
dare
everybody
she?
how good Tiny Bones is. And
Well,
we
you know that
spent
she obviously listens to the show then.
well, yeah, Ash Lizzle's
Yeah.
obviously a huge fan
Yeah,
and credited us with it. Of course
yeah.
not, of course not. But no, it's like you see how strong Tiny Bones is. Like turn one, Tiny Bones turn like they play a one drop. Turn two, cut down, attack, play their one drop. Like it's
Yeah.
so good. Like especially if we're going down on the curve, your opponents are probably going down on the curve too, and so then you get to start playing all their one drops.
And I love that Tiny Bones joins up, makes them discard something that you can
Mhm.
potentially steal with your Tiny Bones. Like that's just nice. So,
Yeah. And so
um,
then now you're in the weird situation of like, well, I can't discard a permanent. So let's discard something that's not a permanent.
and it also mills them too, and
Hmm.
the art's cool. All right,
It's
yeah,
all cool.
just in. I'm
Yeah.
just in for this.
In. I love
Yeah,
it. Rakdos crimes, mono black crimes. Any of
could
that.
be. Yeah,
Could
I
be.
just kind of want to slam Inti in there since it's going to be an aggressive leaning deck, and the +1/+1 counters with Vadmir is like kind of busted. So,
That's totally busted
um,
too. Also having like a 2/2 death touch tiny bones, as
yeah,
opposed to just staying a 1/1 forever, then like it gets really well, you get around all the little counters that are happening and stuff. Seems good.
and
Sorry, when I said counters, I meant tokens.
here's
Um,
the thing: Inti gives trample, and when the way trample and death touch works is you
hmm
actually only have to assign one damage to the blocker to kill it, and the
hmm
other one will trample over and let you activate Tiny Bone's ability.
There you go. So good. So sweet, so fresh. So clean,
Even
so
if
clean,
they
so clean.
block, I'm stealing their one drop.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, as always, this is a snake draft. So
Yeah.
you are up for your three-pointer.
Okay, so this is a card that I didn't know existed at all until I had it in my sealed pool at the
Okay.
pre-release. And I was reading it and I was like, how have I not known about this card? It seems like the perfect card for me. And I think it's right on that bubble of the 3-point level where this is harkening back to a card that has been successful in standard before, but it asks a little more of you. And so I'm excited to try to brew with this card. So the card that I'm going to choose for my 3-pointer, another black card, surprise, surprise, Rakish Crew. So this is 2 and a black for an
Okay.
enchantment. When it
hmm
enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 red mercenary. And whenever an outlaw you control dies, your opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is Bastion of Remembrance,
hmm
but in an outlaw deck, like it asks you to play an outlaw deck, but in an outlaw deck, it's Bastion of Remembrance with upside because the
hmm
mercenary is way better than the random 1/1 that you
That's
get with Bastion.
hmm
That card spurred like a whole red black, like usual kind of sacrifice thing in its standard because it's essentially a blood artist, but it's a little better because
it,
I mean, well,
you
not
can't kill it,
necessarily
but
not necessarily better, but it's harder to get this off the table than
hmm
it is the blood artist. I'm a little concerned with how easy it is to get enchantments off the table right now, but with all the like exile stuff that's going on. But I'm
hmm
hoping that this set's gonna push the curves down with all of like the aggro. The really good creatures and spells tend to be kind of cheap in this set. And so I'm thinking we could have like a more traditional red black sacrifice deck that's not necessarily around Anvil. It's around
hmm
like this card. We have our it's like outlaw sacrifice, and there's a few really good outlaws in this set.
hmm
Again, probably thinking red black here, but doesn't necessarily have to be. Could be black white. Totally reasonable thing to do with this card. Um, do a more traditional aristocrats thing, which was we already have with the Bartolomews and stuff like that.
That's true.
Don't think he's an outlaw, unfortunately.
No.
But
but I'm sure it's worth going back to look at a lot of these like creatures from the past to be like, oh, what are just
Right.
randomly
That's
rogues, you know?
and I love cards like this because I'm just like, what is an outlaw that already exists in standard that I want to play? Like,
Hmm.
let me go find it. Always got to remember, like Mr. Paw.
Mr.
That's an
Paw,
outlaw.
the
Yeah.
outlaw. That's cool. I like that pick. Yeah, I played against this card a little bit in draft, and I definitely did not respect it and lost because of it.
Oh, yeah, this
So
card's good in
yeah,
limited for
just the
sure.
times where you're like, oh, I'm just not going to block, and you take way too much damage. You're like, oh shit, now I can't even attack you anymore. That's when it gets really bad, or kill any of your creatures. Um, but yes, that's sweet. I like that one. That feels very you as well.
Yes, it's as soon as I read it in my pre-release pool, I'm like, this is gonna be my three-pointer in the worth of slot.
That's awesome.
And
Um,
it's always nice to choose a non-rare card.
that's true. That's true. I don't like doing it, but yeah. Um, so my worth a slot, my 3 pointer. I've been kind of going back and forth on this card, and it falls into the same category that I've fallen into many times with worthless slots. I try not to do this, but I do think that this card has some legs. It's on the border of like, is this? It's really, it doesn't categorize itself as a half court shot, so that's why I was like, it's a 3 pointer. We're just gonna do it as a
Right.
3 pointer. This is a green card. It's a green rare, and it goes
Oh,
into
well, then it's already doomed.
a mono green deck essentially, which is part of the reason why it's doomed. But I'm gonna talk about it anyway, and like maybe there's something that could happen with this card. But as Outcaster Trailblazer is 2 and a green for a 4/2 human druid. When it enters the battlefield, you can add one mana of any color to your mana pool, and then whenever another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. It also has plot for 2 and a green, so it's another plot creature um, to get you away from those pesky removal or hand disruption spells. But mainly, it also helps you to just like have really huge turns.
Mhm.
And this type of deck needs to have something that lets you draw cards. It's also a freaking beater. This called it also trades with most things. It doesn't trade with Shieldred, but it does trade with like the stupid Preacher and Gix and a lot of the other cards that like if you're having weird decks where you're like, man, I really have like a 3/4 or something, some other creatures that are just not big enough to just like absolutely just trade with any of those like other card advantage engines, um, then you're just kind of doomed. But green needed one, and I think that if anyone has a hope of playing a mono green deck or any sort of big stompy thing, which this set has a bunch of stompy creatures, um, I think Outcaster Trailblazer will be part of your card advantage package.
Yeah.
So it gives me hope. It's also been kind of one of my obviously in limited. It's a must kill because you're like, well, that card draws
Oh,
cards,
yeah.
but I think it could weasel its way in.
Yeah. I was super excited about this card in my sealed pool. But I think if mono green's going to be a thing, this is going to play a part in that. It might be one of those things where it's sideboard, like a sideboard card that you always bring in kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
game one, you're trying to be lean and just like kill quickly. And then you know that game's going to slow down post board, so you need some form of card advantage, and this is
Hmm.
your way of doing that.
If you're playing like an
Um,
attrition battle or something.
yeah, but you need something that gives this kind of card advantage in mono green. And like
Hmm.
traditionally, these cards, that's kind of how they roll. Yeah,
Hmm.
in mono green, it's like we're all beat down game one, and then we transform into this like surprisingly resilient game two and three deck. And so there's no way to really attack that weakness because I might draw more cards than you do.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I like it. I love the because normally you're like, I wish it drew a card for itself, but plot almost lets you do that where you're like, I'm going to play it and something else in the same turn because
Hmm.
that's super important. If you just jam this for three, you're probably not drawing a card off it.
Yeah.
Um, and so all of this to get, and the fact that you might lose some tempo from that is made up by the first ability a little bit. So
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, you can like plot this on 3, and then on turn 4, play this plus a 5 drop. You're like, okay, that
Hmm.
could be,
Exactly.
that's pretty good. And draw a card. Like that, I like how they realize, all right, we got to make it worth it for you to plot this thing
Yeah.
because generally your deck's going to want to be curving out. Um, yeah, really cool card. And I would be excited if mono green can get a foothold in the metagame again. And
I know.
this is part of it, this is part of
Yeah.
the equation.
Absolutely. Uh,
I think it might still lack the like ones and twos that it really needs
to get there, go
to
across
get
the
to
finish line.
where it was before. But
Yeah, currently it's like all the ones and twos are like artifacty based. Like
yeah,
we were missing like the old growth troll and the wolf pack leader and stuff like that.
yeah, that was the
Um,
crazy one that like
hmm.
was a 2 drop
Yep.
that was
I
aggressive on
th
the curve and also drew a bunch of cards
yeah.
later. It's like, okay, well,
I was like, all right, here we go.
yeah, that's what
So
you need.
this card's definitely not that, but I would not be surprised to see this in standard.
Yeah, maybe in Gruul as well.
Yeah, maybe a gruel thing. That could be kind of gruel to see.
Yeah,
Um,
this reads as a bit of a Gruul card, you know. It's just
mhm.
the whole four power or
Exactly.
more thing. Yeah.
That's very, very true. Um, could be really cool to see. Doesn't go with my first card, but I'm totally great with that. Something completely different. That's what I'd like to see.
I like
Um,
that. Yeah.
so that
Because
card,
I didn't do that. So
I mean, like your decks were actually a little bit different. Um, all right, so this last card, I decided that last time I picked my half court shot for Murders at Karlov Manor, I felt like it was too good. Um, not that this card isn't good, but I think it's definitely weirder. And this is definitely this is powerful, but the whole deck has to be kind of revolved around it card. Um, so my half court shot is for Riku of Many Paths. So
oh
it's
boy.
teamer. So it's green, blue, red for a 3/3 legendary human wizard. It says whenever you cast a modal spell, choose up to X, where X is the number of times you chose a mode for that spell. All right, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So
I think I get it.
you're
Uh
playing modal dot deck.
yeah.
Um, so you could do multiple things. So the first thing that you can do with Riku is you can exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. You can put a +1/+1 counter on Riku, and it gains trample. Or you can create a token that's a 1/1 blue bird with flying. Right. So the rest of your deck has to play modal spells. And modal spells are like any spree cards, any charms, anything that does multiple things that you have to choose. That's what they're talking about. And if you do multiple things on that card, you get to do multiple things on this card.
Okay, but like I'm trying to imagine. So obviously a creature with a modal ETB does not count.
No, because it has to be whenever you cast a modal spell.
Right. So
So
like the definition of modal spell is
is
uh
spree, charm, something that
okay.
says choose one or more,
Okay.
right?
And so right. Okay.
Right.
Just thinking like, yeah,
So
okay.
so basically the reason the card is in the set is because it works with
Spree.
spree,
Yeah.
which those are all modal. We have some other cards that are also spree ish. Sorry, that are also modal. Um, I know what you're thinking. This is a commander card. It is, but I would really like to see someone build a standard deck with this and see what you can do. That's what I'm saying.
Hey, teamer spree, man.
Team or
Teamer
spree.
spree. Yeah.
Um,
You might
so
find a charm kicking around somewhere, or some other random modal spell. It's like,
exactly.
oh,
It's like, huh, maybe this will be good.
yeah.
Expect this deck to be playing 4 copies of Phantom Interference because that's the counterspell of choice for that deck. Um,
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't say it was going to be great, but it would be really cool to see this deck be a deck, you know? Because like the rest, we have a lot of like just random legends in this, but I think this one of all the random ones that you could play, there's
Yeah,
something
this
you could
this is the
try.
most half court shoddy because it's
Yes.
like a 3/3 for three with like some non-trivial abilities
Hmm.
here, but it asks a lot of you. It
You need a
asks a
full
whole lot.
card. Yeah, you need a full card, and you only sometimes draw a card, or you could ish draw a card. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it could be fun. I think
I,
Riku could
I'm
be
also a
cool.
sucker for like designs like this where it's green, blue, and red, and then it has a red ability, a green ability, and a blue ability.
Hmm.
And then like the kicker for me is like it likes modal stuff. So it's like it likes when you do that in your design. And
Yeah,
it's like that's cute. I like
it
the
is
I like
cute.
the I like the design aspect of this.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is that saying the word modal on a card is a little clunky, I think.
Yeah.
Like a little
That's yeah, my
or
only criticism is like is a modal spell like a well-defined thing? I mean, it must be,
I guess it is now, but
but yeah, it was more of a anyways, good choice. That's an excellent choice.
it's definitely a half court shot.
My choice, I feel bad about this because we discussed it last time. We try not to like talk about our worthless slots in previous episodes so we can talk about as many new cards as possible. But it's just not right if this isn't my half court shot. Wouldn't be true to me. And I already talked about it last week. You may, if you listen to last time's episode, you may guess which one is the thing that I desperately want to be good, but it is not probably going to be good. So my half court shot is Satoru, the Infiltrator. Come on, ninjas, baby. Ninjas, finally. We only have a few more months before you rotate. Now's the chance to dominate standard.
Ooh, Ninja Summer.
So Satoru is blue black 2/3 menace. When it or one or more other non-token creatures enter the battlefield under your control, if none of them were cast or no mana was spent to cast them, draw a card. So in this set, yes, it's cool. It plays with plot really well. Um, and there's some reanimator stuff like Zach was talking about, and that's cool. It's a ninja and it works with ninjutsu. And
Hmm.
so I want this to finally be the thing that pushes ninjas into the competitive scene. And I think I might be taking this shot from a little further back from half court. But you know what? Sometimes it goes in.
Really, I feel like this card is very strong, and you got a chance.
My half court shot is specifically ninjas. If this is
Okay,
played in some like blue black, just demure like tempo deck or
I
whatever,
understand. I understand.
I'm not interested in that.
Okay,
Yeah.
specifically ninja deck doing ninjutsu things. I
Yeah.
understand now. I understand fully. All right. Well, then we'll hold you to that. When this wins the pro tour, but it's
Yes.
not
Yeah.
ninjas, I
Yeah.
will
I,
say it
I
doesn't
won't
count.
claim the false victory like I did with Fane Ripper. This one I'll just admit that I said it up front. This is not what I intended.
Yeah. Uh, well, perfect.
Which I'm more comfortable doing with the half court shot than the
It's true.
3/3.
It's true. Yeah, yeah. With the 3 pointer. Um, all right. With that, Jeff, do we have any overrated, underrated cards for this
Oh
set?
man, so we're snaking here. Overrated. Did I have one for this? I'm not 100% sure because I haven't been super dialed into what other people are saying is good. If you have one, you can take it away. And
I I do have one.
okay,
Um, so I this is kind of for myself, and it kind of contradicts something I said earlier that I was hoping would go well, literally like 10 minutes ago. But I do want to say that there's a card I think is kind of overrated. It could just be in draft. Maybe it's a lot better some other places, but I think that Gold Vein Hydra is overrated. It's a bit overrated.
okay,
All right, so Gold Vein Hydra is X and a green for a 0/0 creature Hydra at Mythic. It has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. It enters the battlefield with X+1/+1 counters on it because it's a Hydra. They all do that. And whenever it dies, you create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to its power. I had the misfortune of opening Goldvein Hydra, pack one, pick one, 3 drafts in a row
Is
today.
that misfortune or
It
surely
ended
you
up,
7-0'd all those drafts?
I absolutely did not. And I always ran into a situation where I'd have the Hydra in my hand and I couldn't play an attack because they had something bigger or better, or it would immediately either be like it would be chump attacks or something would happen where like I'd like, well, this really needs to be like a 6/6 or it's not worth playing. And it just it just never worked out the way it just didn't swing the game the way I thought it was going to swing. Like it wasn't the card that was like winning me games. Like you can't
Yeah.
reanimate this card. It doesn't do anything. Like you can't do any like the best thing that happened with this card of the whole draft and was probably the one of the reasons it was great, but the reason it was amazing was the other card is that I also had Ornery Tumblewag in that deck. And so I was able to come back at 1 life, slam Goldvein Hydra, and then saddle the Tumblewag and double the counter. So it was like
Yeah, I mean,
an 18/18 or something.
it's a
So
combo made in heaven.
yeah. So that was the time where I was like I was already coming back and I was able to close the door a lot faster because of Goldvein Hydra. But every other time I had the card, it just really didn't get there. And it was kind of like, should I just be playing this as like a on turn 3 as a 2/2 and just get treasures? And then it feels so underwhelming for like your mythic pick of like, oh, sick, this is why I'm playing green.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a 3 mana 2/2 with trample and haste and vigilance and then get 2 treasures. Like I guess I had much higher hopes for it, and I think a lot of people did. And sometimes it steals the game, but a lot of times it just doesn't do a ton.
Yeah.
So I think you need some other stuff going on. Um, and I was thinking that this might have something like it was part of the kind of map of like, oh, this is a really nice curve filler for like green and standard. If you can kind of play it on whatever like spot you need, depending.
Yeah.
Um, and so it
And
might
that's the actual power of the card, right?
exactly,
Is
and I
that thing you just said.
exactly,
Yeah.
and I think it'll fit a lot better, possibly in a constructed format where you're like hoping you can do different things with it. But as far as limited goes, not that you shouldn't pick it, but if you start to see that like green isn't open, maybe this card isn't gonna be enough. Like you could,
No,
it's just
exactly.
yeah. There are other things in green that are really great, and this one feels like it's the colossal rattle worm, or feels like it's the ornery tumblewag, or feels like it's the railway brawler or something. But like
Oh, railway brawler.
it's yeah, it's not those cards. It is different. It's still good, but sometimes you take it and you're like, oh, this is just the best card. It's gonna be great. I I had to knock it down a couple pegs. Be like, oh, right.
Tell you what, Zach, I'm trying to play railway brawler into this thing.
Mm.
To...
I mean, like, yes, that sounds great. What's going to happen is you'll have Gold Vein Hydra in your hand from the opening. You'll never draw a Railway Brawler, and then you just die. And
Yeah.
because you play like Gold Vein Hydra, and your opponent's attacking you in the air, and you're like, damn, I don't have reach, and that's it.
Yeah. So I think this is a perfect card to call out as being overrated because when you see a card like this, the natural thing you would think is this is my big finisher, right? Like
Mhm.
this can be as big as I want it to be. I think the actual power of this card is that it fills in your curve literally anywhere. So what you want to do with this card is beat down. If you pick this pack one, pick one, you are committing to like green beat down. Sometimes this is going to be your 8 drop that like just steals the game.
Mhm.
But this card is really like this is your 4 mana 3/3 haster after you've played like a 2-drop and a 3-drop. You know what I mean? And the fact that it dies into treasure, I think is really cool because it's Wizards kind of telling you like, hey, you kind of want to play this
Early.
earlier
Hmm.
sometimes. Um, but everyone's going to look at this like, whoa, this is the unbeatable game-winning bomb. But really, generally, this card is winning you the game in a less obvious way. It's
Yeah.
like it let me curve out in a hand, like it
Smoothly
smooths my hands, like my
and
curves.
ramps you in a way.
Yeah,
I
and the ramp will come up and like is also good in a beatdown deck because then you can double spell if they
yeah.
kill it. And it's like I think it is a very good card, but it's not good for the reason or in the ways that most people will initially think it
Yeah.
is. And it takes a little more like skill and finesse to play than you probably think. Like X
Yes.
spells are usually like play for
As much as possible.
save up as long as you can and then
And then
jam it
slam it.
for as big an X value as you can.
Yes.
This is like I'm kind of wanting this to be a 4-drop. That's like when I look at this card, I'm like, I want to play this as a
Hmm.
3/3 Vigilance Trample Haste after I played like a 3/2 on turn two, and then like another 3/3 on like how are you beating that if I do that?
Yeah.
And so
And I'm feeling like this needs to be the biggest thing on this is like I look at this card and my Timmy alarm goes off and like my
yeah,
whole
exactly.
I just like transform into Timmy. Like I just pull
Yeah.
off my mask and it's just like me being like this has got to be the biggest thing on the battlefield when I play it.
Yeah, and
And
I'm like, how reasonable a 2-drop is this?
I've
We
seen the
talking 1/1 Vigilance Trample Haste dies into a treasure token? I don't hate
I've
it.
seen people play it like that and it feels not
It definitely feels wrong, right? But if I have a 3-drop and a 4-drop, I'm probably gonna do it.
or you need your splash or something. I could see that being like, hey, I'm just a chump attacking so I get a treasure.
But I think
Um,
that the part a lot of people might miss is that the real power comes in curving out, and so it really does ask you to be a beatdown deck. You could put this in any green deck and it'll be fine. Like it's not gonna be a bad card. Um, but the slower you are, the more time your opponent has to set up and like this and
play,
the less valuable the treasure tokens are when it dies. Like that's
yeah.
the cool part. The bigger X is, the less valuable the treasure tokens are.
Hmm.
So it kind of is hinting like, hey, curve out, curve out, curve out. That's what your
Hmm.
deck is all about. And I'm gonna help you do that. And so I think this is a great design, but I think it's a perfect card to choose for overrated because people are gonna be like, best
Yes,
card in the set and it just wins the games like,
people.
X equals 7.
Hmm.
Like that's what you're
Oh,
thinking. And
seven, seven is heaven. Everything else
yeah.
is trash.
Yeah. If I cast it for like X equals 2, that sucks, right?
Yeah.
Like
Honestly, I think what I have to do is like if I have this card again, which I probably will have this card because Arena just thinks I want a million
apparently. Yeah,
copies.
yeah. You
Three
you
times
already
in a
pro
row?
do you already have a playset?
No, I only have three from that
Okay,
three
you didn't
that
get it in like a sealed pool or
it's a
something. Like
mythic. Yeah.
accidentally pick up the fourth copy somewhere.
Yeah, I just like I just remember just sitting there being like, "Oh my God, are we building this deck again?"
Please no more losing with Gold Vein Hydra.
Like
I
literally
can't
going to
handle
the next draft,
it.
being like, "Please, anything else?" And
Please
of
no
course,
more
like,
Gold Vein Hydra.
yeah. And what happened
That's
was,
insane. Three
yeah,
times in a row.
three times in a row on stream, you can check it. And so
Check
then
and see.
the next the next draft, my rare was Ariete. It was just like, oh, here we go. Here's an unplayable card. Ariete the Beguiler. Like it's the Esper 4/4 with lifelink that like
Yeah, yeah.
if you put auras on your opponent's creatures, you gain control of them, but they have to be like their mana value has to be less than the aura that you played, which auras, big auras are not fun to me. One mana auras are really fun to me.
Yeah.
So like that it doesn't do anything.
I like the idea of incentivizing big auras, for the
Hmm.
people that do think big auras are cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't even like auras in the first place. So.
But still it's tempting, but just not in draft. It doesn't do anything.
Okay.
Um, all
So I
right,
did
sorry.
remember my overrated card. And this is going to feel
Okay.
weird because the card I'm choosing is overrated, has like
Yeah.
a storied history of being an extremely dominant card,
Okay.
especially out of sideboards in formats, all of them.
All of them.
but it's being introduced to standard. And so what I'm seeing all over the place in like Reddit is the new meta that involves this card. Like, how are you
Hmm.
going to react to the new meta that involves this card? So the card I'm choosing as overrated is Rest in Peace because it's
Oh,
entering the standard environment.
right.
And like I'm seeing standard discussions where people are like, oh, but what do you think of the new Rest in Peace meta? They're literally calling it that, that the new meta game is the Rest in Peace meta. And like, is this card gonna fundamentally change standard, do you think? Like, it's gonna be in some sideboards, I'm sure, as better graveyard hate than like
Then,
the the car. But like no decks are really all in on the graveyard. They use it because there's already pretty good graveyard hate. So it's
yeah.
like, what is this gonna do? Like, people are talking about it like this is gonna fundamentally change the format and that you have to be aware of the new Rest in Peace like meta game. It's like, what? Are people even gonna play this?
I don't.
Rest in
That's
Peace is like worse than I can't remember the name of the car, but
unlicensed hers.
thank you, unlicensed hearse. That's
Hmm.
not even a car, is it? But like
That's a car.
yeah. But
But
like
yes.
that card is better in a metagame that tries to use its graveyard a little bit. This card
Hmm.
is good against decks that are like, fuck you, I'm gonna do all my
Oh, my
graveyard shit.
graveyard.
I'm gonna kill you on like turn 2 if you don't do anything about it.
Hmm.
And this card is like, okay, your deck is now awful.
Yeah.
That's not what standard is about. Like this
No.
isn't even a standard card. This is a modern plus. By
It's a
plus, I mean
pioneer.
like
Yeah.
older. Yeah, do people like Pioneer? Maybe, yeah. If
Yeah, there's
there's
some decks
all in
that turn
grave, yeah, there's
off.
some
Yeah.
all in graveyard decks in Pioneer. Um, but it's for older formats. It's not for
Hmm.
standard, really. It's like this isn't even that good against Reanimator decks because all in Reanimator decks are equally bad to like graveyard trespasser. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Just like getting rid of something at instant speed or
but certainly unlicensed hearse already does the job against them. So,
yeah, also
and
kills
actually,
them. Yeah.
right, it actually provides an attacker. So people are talking about this like it actually is going to change the standard metagame, and I'm sure there are going to be some decks that play this, and it's just going to make you want to do graveyard stuff even less. But I can't think of any decks where you actually want to set this in
I think
currently that
that's
are
a
at the
great
top of the metagame.
I think that's a great call out because like maybe okay, so maybe you want to do this against the lands deck, right? That wants to bring all your lands back. But like
Maybe, yeah,
because like the big part of that deck is that like the main core function is that you need the alchemist to bring back all the sack lands. So if you
yeah,
I've whenever I played against it, it was really difficult when my opponent kept exiling my whole graveyard in random swaths, but I could just like try to build it back up.
right.
So if they turn to this, it'd be like, ooh, my deck doesn't work nearly as well. So I wonder if they just like adjust and like change their game plan a little bit. But that's probably the only all-in graveyard deck. Like it's not like Golgari is like really hurting that badly if you do this and stop them from their whatever is like that's not even top of the metagame. So
Right. And the whole point of, you know, like the Mosswood Dread Knight is that it's like incidentally extra value. Like,
exactly. You already got the card out of it
right,
by
it's
the time
already
it
a
hits the
3/2 for
battlefield.
2.
Yeah.
It's fine. Um, yeah, I was forgetting about the Lance deck, I guess, a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't really consider that deck tier 1 personally, but
I love that deck.
it had
So
its like flash in the pan where I was like, is this deck going to be tier 1? And then as I played against it more, I'm like, no, I don't think it is. You could just beat it with regular means without if you're playing one of the really, really good decks.
yeah,
You could just beat it on route because it's not very fast.
no.
If you just kill Nissa, it's not fast enough, I found personally. Um, so they're always like sandbagging Nissas to try to do something in a whole turn. And I'm like, okay, kill your Nissa. Now you sandbagged your Nissa, took a turn off and didn't do anything.
Hmm.
So that probably is what people are referring to, but like, I guess what I'm suggesting is you don't need this to beat that deck.
Gotcha.
Uh, but yeah, this would hose them pretty good. I mean, they're in colors that can deal with enchantments, so you sandbag some mill spells. and like
Hmm.
you wait until you can kind of overcome this, but it would slow them down. It would slow down their already slow combo, that's for sure. But I think the thing people don't necessarily realize is this slows you down a lot as well. Like you spent a turn to play this that doesn't develop your game plan
Hmm.
at all. And so like what deck wants this control, maybe? Like the trade-off of an
Sure.
aggro deck playing this against a slow combo deck is like I'm slowing me down and slowing you down. And it's like I
Hmm.
think that probably generally favors the slower deck. Uh could be wrong, but I don't know. In an aggro deck, I just kind of think I
You want to
probably
kill
beat.
them. Yeah.
I
Beat
will
them
say the
dead.
lands deck does gain a lot of life, so maybe it is a tough
That's
matchup for
true.
like white-based aggro. Like they gain a lot more life than you usually
They do.
think
They
they're
gain
going
at least
to.
like 10 to 12, like
Yeah,
routinely, very
yeah.
easily.
So maybe
Um,
maybe the white-based aggro decks, like the go wide Boros, does
mhm.
need this to beat lands. But I would think Boros is too fast for the land stack. Like Boros is like it feels like it's 20 power on turn three. Like it's just insane.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
that,
the lands deck has cast like a 1/4 in that time. It's just not enough, right?
yeah, well, they do like move into like more board wipes and things, but because
Right.
if
So the
you,
game isn't really about this though. The game is, I guess you play
exactly,
this, they board wipe, you know. Yeah, maybe.
yeah,
Maybe post board you want this in the Boros deck against the land deck. I could buy that.
yeah, maybe you could use, I agree
But
with
then
your
the
point.
game's slow enough that they can blow it up.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I definitely agree that it's not a rest in peace meta. That's 100%. I think that that's very true. I
Yeah.
think that having a couple copies of this in your sideboard against that specific deck, I could find a reasoning to it. I think we just need to play it a bit more to see. Um, but because in general, I don't know what they're using to blow it up with. I don't think they have any cards just like main deckable that they just like blow things up. Because they're
They just play like Tranquil Frillback or whatever.
they could, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Like if this is part of the metagame, if it
yes,
is the
if
rest
it's
in peace meta, then they
yeah, then they
adapt.
play that stinking card. Um, Freaking tranquil throwback
It's a good
bullshit.
card.
I know. But
I
anyway,
don't think I
yeah,
even own any, but every time I play against it, I'm like, oh, that's a good card.
yeah. It's a modal card, but
There you go.
it
There you
doesn't
go.
count for Riku, I
Yeah,
don't think.
it should.
It should, because actually no, because do you have to pay it when it enters, or do you have to pay it when it when you cast it?
I think it's when it enters. Could
Let's
be wrong
see. Yeah, when it enters. Damn it.
though. I know.
So it's just a 3/3 for 3 on the stack? Sucks. Oh, bummer. Well,
God damn it, Riku.
I picked Riku because I thought Tranquil Frillback was
Yeah,
going to be
damn
good.
it. That's
Damn
the whole
it.
thing.
That's the whole thing. Jeff, do you have an underrated card?
Oh boy. I had one. Can I remember what it is? Oh yeah. So this is a card that like again, I was in my pre-release pool and I've talked about it a little bit already today, and I'm just not seeing any discussion of it in standard, but I actually do think it is standard playable. So the card I was going to choose is just Magda, the Horde Master.
It's so good.
This is a 2/2 for two. Whenever you commit a crime, you create a tapped treasure token. Excuse me, I'm already kind of in. Like committing a crime is so easy,
Hmm.
and treasure tokens are so good. Um, but just in case that wasn't enough, sack three treasures, create a 4/4 with flying and haste. The token has haste. Yeah, I mean, I think this card is it definitely going to see play in standard? I don't know, but I think it's like pretty good, and I'm not seeing anyone like talk about it or try it or anything like that. I'm like, I think you might be underestimating how easy it is to commit crimes and
Hmm.
how good a 4/4 flying haste for free is
For
in an
free.
aggro deck. Yeah.
Yeah. And a deck that already wants to do those types of things. Thank
Yeah.
God that attacking your opponent and dealing damage to them is a crime because you get so many treasures.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Um,
The deck would just be
yeah.
bonkers. Imagine turn one like Tiny Bones, turn two Magda attack, you make a treasure.
Crazy.
That'd be
Like
nuts.
make a treasure play whatever. Oh God. So good. But no, Magda, I also had Magda in my pre-release. It's one of the reasons I was playing red. Super great card, super awesome. Yeah, and yeah, it's right. Nobody people is really talking about it.
Yeah, I had a
People,
game where I went like Magda and then I forget what crime I committed. I was able to commit some sort of crime
no,
to accelerate
it's
Rakdos out a
it's
turn
so
early.
easy to commit crimes. Like,
Yeah. So I did like three drops that committed a crime into turn four Rakdos.
mhm.
And the three drop was I can't remember if it was a rare, but it was at least an uncommon. My opponent was just like come on, man. Like Magda on the play, Magda into like three drop that commits a crime into Rakdos on turn four. Like what the
You're
fuck
like,
am I
what the
supposed
fuck
to
is
do?
this? Like,
I was
this
like,
is
yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. My pool was
like,
pretty good.
I'm sorry, buddy. Like, that's just what's happening. Yeah, damn, that's crazy. Damn,
Yeah.
Daniel, that's nice. Uh, so my
Sure, my
under.
opponent's name was Dan.
Oh, really? Was it? Oh, that's funny.
I was like, were you there? Did you know?
Did you know?
How did you know that?
Um, no, that's just a popular saying.
Yeah.
Um, so I have I have an underrated card. Um, it's really just me wanting to talk about a card and then a real underrated card. So I'm going to start with my real underrated card,
Okay.
which is every desert, basically. All the ping deserts, all the
Mm.
duels, all of them. Everyone should be taking them more than they are. They should be hard to get in draft. Uh, we were just talking about how committing a crime is really easy. Deserts commit crimes for free. For
Oh,
free. Every deck wants to commit a crime for free. Every deck wants to deal one damage to their opponent. Every deck wants these. I've been playing. I've literally built decks where it's like I'm basically like Abzan, and then while I'm building the deck, I just kind of take out some of the black cards that were just like black tutus. I'm like, you know what? I just want to keep all of the deserts I took to splash and just use them as pings, and they all
I don't think
tap.
it's crazy.
I don't think it's crazy at all. You should be playing these cards. You should be playing like if you're playing like a red black, just play the red green desert.
Yeah,
Play like the
let's check
black
it
blue
in.
desert. Just play them because like committing crimes for free is going to be so beneficial. There's so many times where you're just like I just want to commit a crime. Like
Yeah.
any way I
Just
can.
like in
Just
real life, I don't even care what the crime is. Just need
don't
to
even
commit one.
sometimes you get that itch, you get the
Yeah.
itch and you're like, God, I gotta commit a crime right now.
Yeah.
Deserts are the way to do it. Um,
I meant to say this earlier when we were talking about Hard Bristle Bandit, but I
mhm,
just love the for some reason, I really love the idea of like tapping the Bandit, playing the desert,
mhm.
and then still like it's almost like the desert wasn't tapped
Tapped because you get to.
because yeah, I'm just like it's such a nice way to like keep curving in a normal way, but
Mhm.
like sneak in the tap land there that I just love that play pattern for some reason. I'm
That
just
you're so on the money. You're so on the money.
yeah.
Um, the other thing that's fun is that like the deserts, legitimately, you have to decide whether playing it on turn one is correct. Because
Yeah.
almost always you want to play your tap lands on turn one if you don't have a one drop. With deserts, you're like, honestly, playing a
I
two
would
drop that cares about committing a crime, turn three, play another two drop and commit a crime. That's
yeah.
actually better for me
It
than
depends
committing.
on your deck for sure, but I would default to not playing it on turn one
Yeah,
and
just
holding
like,
it because you'll always find a turn where you don't get to curve out perfectly and limited.
mhm,
And having like committing a crime later is so much better. So
mhm.
unless your deck just does not care about committing crimes or like only cares a little, I would generally my default is going to be to hold my deserts.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like
could be wrong about that, but
it does depend on your deck. Like if you're
and
playing,
your hand, like if
yeah,
your hand is two drop, three drop, four drop,
like
and
dub,
like
play it on
yeah,
turn one.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And you want to have some of them on the battlefield earlier if you're playing like Deserts Do, which is the black and removal spell that cares about deserts, things like that.
Yeah,
But in general, you just the amount of times where my opponent is able to kill me when I'm at two life because they like play a desert, ping me for one, and then play the what's Vault Plunderer, the 3 mana 3/1 that makes target player draws a card, loses life. They're just like, oh, and
Yes.
then you lose a life and you die. Like that is the type of stuff that happens a lot. Um,
I
in
think that
this,
card is so interesting in this metagame too,
it's
where it's
so
like there's
interesting.
going to be times when you're like, is it worth it to let my opponent draw a card so that I commit a crime,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Like it's not going to come up often. Generally, you're going to be targeting yourself with this ability, but I love them adding that kind of extra
yeah.
dimension where like beyond the you're at one and this kills you, there's
Hmm.
like an extra
Multiple
layer of I
things.
might want to target you with
Yeah,
this.
because my like if I have two ravens on the battlefield, also
Yeah,
in unscrupulous agent, sorry, unscrupulous contractor is the card. It's the same thing, but they lose 2 life and draw 2 cards.
right.
You can also target your
But you
opponent
have to
with that.
sack something, right?
You have to
Yeah.
sacrifice a creature, but it could be the actual creature
I
itself.
love that that targets a player. Like that is
Hmm.
has extra meaning in this set. I think that's really
Exactly.
cool.
They did a good job with that.
Yeah.
So that was my main thing. I just want to be like, hey, deserts are so good. Um, Kind of piggybacking on that. Uh, Omen Port Vigilante. I love this card.
Okay.
Just so Omen Port Vigilante is a very Zach card. It is a 2 mana 2/2 in white that sometimes has double strike. So this is the card I really wanted to talk about, but I knew I had to talk about a real card first.
Yeah.
It works hand in hand with the deserts because you want to commit crimes so that you have a double striker. But honestly, I had a deck with three
And
of
this wants
these.
to attack, so the one damage from the deserts. Right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's really helpful. But I did have this card. I had three vigilantes in my deck, as well as two of the thunder lassos. So you like turn two, vigilante, turn three, thunder lasso, attach it. It's a 3/3. You attack, you tap a creature that commits a crime. Now it's a 3/3 double strike, and then you just hit them for 6 over and over again. That was a blast. And that was one of the decks I thought was going to get a trophy. Ended up getting like 5 or 6 wins, but that was
Yeah,
a
now
lot of
you're
fun.
speaking my language. We talking Boros here?
It was black, red, white, black, actually. I
Oh,
know we
bummer.
weren't playing red.
Yeah.
Um,
I just assumed with like, that kind of shenanigans.
those shenanigans. But Thunder Lasso with Omenport Vigilante, awesome. Plus having deserts, fantastic.
Yeah.
Uh, I kind of like that a little bit more than the like it's a 2 mana 1/1 always has double strike, but you have to pump it. This
Yeah,
2 mana
sure.
2/2 sometimes has double strike. You attack, you kill one of their creatures, it gets double strike out of nowhere. That's fun. I like that.
Yeah. This card's obviously a good limited card for
Yeah.
sure in the right deck. The only time I've encountered it was my opponent had it and they were on the back foot.
Yeah.
And so they were blocking with it and were constantly making like suboptimal plays in order to have committed a crime to give this thing double strike. And I was just like leaving it on the battlefield because my opponent was keep willing to like spew spells just to get it, give it double strike so it survived combat. And I was like, the plays I'm making aren't correct because like I probably would just win faster if I didn't do this. But I'm
Hmm.
kind of loving this scenario where my opponent passes the turn and then I attack and then they make a block and they use some spell in a ridiculously inefficient way just to give it double strike. And I'm like, if you just let go of this 2-2 a long time ago, this game would have been closer. You still would have lost because you just didn't like I was on the aggro and you didn't kind of draw enough relevant creatures and kept drawing. Like, but my opponent
Spells that
literally
commit
like,
crimes for the double strike, of course.
yeah, like my opponent literally, what's the spell that like buffs your um power or whatever? Like,
What? Like, there's a lot of them. Um,
yeah,
what color is it?
I think it was a red spell. Anyways, like they basically, I can't remember what the spell was, but they basically like played a pump spell on my creature so that theirs would get double strike and eat my creature for free, basically, was the idea.
Oh, did you just mean the one quick draw?
It was it quick draw? It might have been
Like
quick
target
draw.
creature gets +1/+1 in first strike, and
No,
then
no, it couldn't have been that because that wouldn't work. Because like they pumped my creature,
Oh, that says you control. Right, right, right.
and then theirs got double strikes so that they could eat it. Um, if they just pumped their creature, it would have been a trade. Anyways, it was like
I have no idea what you're talking about, but interesting. That like I that does seem
let me see if I can find it. But anyways, it's like obviously a ridiculous play, right?
yeah,
It's just like
that is pretty funny. Um,
maybe it wasn't red. They were white red for sure. Was it a white card? Anyways, like I was like, did they mean to
okay,
target my guy? And I was like, oh, this actually allows their creature to survive the combat. Uh, but it if they played on their own creature, we would have traded because it wouldn't have the first strike needed to kill
gotcha,
my
gotcha.
creature anymore. And it was just like, that doesn't seem like it was like, does that ever seem like a winning line? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's like yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Uh, anyway, dang, Outlaws has been crazy. I have so many more stories and things I want to talk about, but I think Jeff, we should probably wrap it up and we should
yeah,
go to last
we've
call.
gone long.
As we do, as we like to do on the podcast.
Yeah, especially on
Um,
these ones.
of course,
The
of
new
course.
set.
Yeah. Jeff, let's quickly go to last call. So, this is the portion of the show where we rate the beer that we drank this evening on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. Before we get into this, I just want to say that this is just a fun way to rate beers. It's everyone's in different tiers at different times, so don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. You have to spit them out on the ground, pour them out. You won't even finish them. That's how bad they are.
And silver beer is just kind of bad or maybe boring. Macro brews tend to find themselves in this category.
Gold beers are fine, but you wouldn't really drink them again.
Platinum beers are good, and you would drink them again.
Diamond beers are exceptional. You love these beers and you show them off to your friends.
And Mythic, these are the best of the best. These are the I guess it's only fair. These are the slick shot show-offs of the beer world.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy, buddy. Um, all right, so let's go to
Boy, it's gonna be embarrassing when nobody plays this card and we're just like, oh man, we called it. We sung its praises for so long.
we really did. All right, Jeff. Deluxe.
Deluxe.
What did we think? I'll start. I was very
Loved it.
uh,
I can tell. I
it
can
was
tell.
it was not my favorite.
It's your new favorite beer. Oh,
Yeah. It kind of grew on me a little bit as we started drinking it, but at the very beginning, I was like, "Oh, this kind of doesn't. It's not doing it for me."
so I had the opposite, I think. My first sip was
Interesting.
like, huh, that was like better than I thought it
Yeah, I
was
feel like
gonna
I think I
be.
saw that on your face.
And then it mellowed out to a point where I'm like, actually, is this just kind of okay?
Okay,
Uh,
like kind of okay.
but at first I was like, oh, a delicious lager. And then yeah, it I'm not even sure what that initial sip I tasted that made me do that. It was just I think it might be the can design. I think I looked at this and I was like,
Uh,
this is gonna suck.
it's
And then I drank it and I was like, it doesn't suck. And then by the end I was like, it's fine. Um,
it it's fine.
yeah,
Like
it tastes like honestly it tastes a bit like a macro brew, to be honest.
it does.
Which I think is what they're going for, probably, especially with the
Yeah.
Canada's. Like maybe that's the real reason. It's like, hey, maybe this is a bat signal to macro brew drinkers.
That's true.
You won't
Hey,
mind this.
that's true. I
Uh,
think that's honestly what a lot of this stuff is. Like Fat Tire's doing the same thing.
right.
Like trying to get the macro brew drinkers into craft beer with something as close to as possible. So this definitely feels like a marketing ploy and a very tactical, I don't know, tactical decision.
Yeah. I thought it was fine. Like a good take on. what would be a good tasting macro brew kind of thing
Yeah,
in the end. So, you know what? Maybe Golden Lager is an apt description for
I was
me.
gonna
I'll,
say.
I'll throw this in gold.
Yeah, I think it's low gold, almost silver. It's low
Mhm.
gold. I'll probably pick different lagers before this, almost assuredly, but I'm
I'll bump
really.
it up because whatever that first sip contained, that sip was like, oh, that didn't
I think
remind
you
me of a
got to
macro.
steal the good sips
Yeah.
from me because the first sips I had that like kind of weird,
Yeah.
almost dusty Sapporo almost, and then it went away, and I was like, okay, all right, now I'm fine with it. But at the beginning, I was like, oh no, what's gonna happen?
My fridge just cooled it to the exact right temperature.
Oh, you lucky
Yeah.
son of a bitch. So gold's all around for the Golden Lager Deluxe from Burdock.
Yeah.
Um,
I think this is probably what they were shooting for.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
They they
I'm
did
not surprised. I'm not
they
surprised.
they did the thing.
They did the thing. Definitely not as great a beer as Thunder Junction is as a set. I think it's awesome. Really stoked for more of this and this weekend as well as the Pro Tour. Keep it coming. Yee-haw. Or as I've been saying on stream a lot, howdy, howdy, howdy. I'm Woody. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Anyway, that is a quote from Toy Story, if you anyone remembers. Um, let's go to closing time. If you could tell me what character is saying that in Toy Story, come to Arena Regulars at Twitter and Instagram. Tell me what you think it is. I'd love to hear your thoughts, or if you have the correct answer, I will give you a thumbs up.
Buzz Lightyear.
No.
Yeah, that sound is so Buzz. You may also find us on Arena itself. Username would be Arena Regulars Podcast.
If you want to talk to me personally, come into my Twitch chat. I stream Monday to Thursday, 10 to 2 at regular_Zach. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is on the Discord channel. Um, we post deck lists, we post drafts. You could see Zach's epic 7-win black-white deck. We just love to talk Magic, and we'd love to talk Magic with you. So come join us. I'll be regular Jeff on there, and the link for that is in the show notes.
That's right. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there as well. Go to our YouTube channel. All the different types of things. But most importantly, if you like the show, if you like us, please just tell your friends about us. It means the
Yeah.
world, and we'd really appreciate it. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that I was wrong about Tiny Bones.
Good night. All right, that's fine.